Spiral. The subheader says from the book of Saw, but I'm going to choose to ignore that because that's stupid. Spiral is the 9th installment of the Saw franchise. It is directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, the director of Saws 2 through 4, and it's written by Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger, the writers of Jigsaw. It stars Chris Rock, Max Minghella, and Samuel L. Jackson, which means this is the most high-profile cast for a Saw movie since the first one. So the basic plot of Spiral is that the characters played by Chris Rock and Max Minghella are partners in the Metro Police Department, and there's a copycat Jigsaw killer out there targeting cops. Right off the bat, I want to say that I was very intrigued when I first saw the trailer for this movie because it seemed like a really new take for the franchise. It felt almost David Fincher-esque in the way they were presenting the detective storyline. And you can tell that parts of this movie are inspired by movies like Seven. Now, does it live up to movies like that? Does it really reach that level? That's a different story.
It's definitely a no for me, dog.
Let me start off with what I liked about this movie. I do appreciate that they brought Darren Lynn Bousman back because he's a Saw alumnus. He directed 3 of the other movies, so it's cool to see them give him another shot. It is interesting to focus solely on the inner workings of the police department. The little bits of humor that are injected into this movie are usually pretty funny, and I think that's probably because 2 of the main people in this movie are Chris Rock and then Samuel L. Jackson, who are funny people inherently, so that's good. And I can appreciate that they tried something new for this movie. Whether they were successful or not, I will talk about later, but the fact that they tried to do something new and not just the same old thing, you gotta give them props for that, I guess. Now for the things I didn't like about this movie. This movie is pretty poorly written in terms of dialogue and story. At certain points, there's just exposition dumps where they're like, here's the info you need to know. We're not going to do it in any kind of creative way. There's no finesse. Here you go.
Thank you, doctor. Take 2 of these and call me in the morning.
The way the cops talk isn't like you would think that real cops would talk. That's kind of a problem that every Saw movie has had, but this one too. It's like they took lines from cops they had seen on TV and just boiled them all down into one thing. Real cops don't talk like that, and it's pretty obvious. And in terms of story, it's just, the cops don't follow protocol, they don't get in trouble when they should get in trouble. There's just a lot of things that are unrealistic there. I will say that Darren Lynn Bousman's directing, I think, is better than his previous movies, because he's had years to learn, but there are still certain things sometimes where it's the typical Saw, like, ooh, let's move really quick, or do weird cuts, and, in today's world, that doesn't work as well as maybe it did 15 years ago, but the editing of this movie, too, including flashbacks in certain places, is weird and choppy and kind of makes the movie feel fragmented, and it doesn't flow very well. Some of the acting performances aren't the best, including Chris Rock, which was kind of surprising. At certain points, it was fine, but others, I was like, ooh, you're kind of phoning it in. I think he tried, but there are just certain scenes where it's like, I don't believe you.
I don't believe you.
And that's not good. If I don't buy your character the way you portray him. Sorry, Chris. I like you, but I don't know, certain points didn't do it for me. That being said, Max Minghella was by far the strongest actor in this movie, which really isn't surprising because he's a young, up-and-coming actor. He's been in The Handmaid's Tale and The Social Network and stuff, so it's not surprising that he put in the best performance. Some of the traps are fine, some are just a big fat shrug, but that's kind of what you get with any Saw movie. None of them made me roll my eyes and go, this is awful. So I guess that's fine. It's just nothing to write home about. Plus, this movie is wholly unoriginal. You've seen these things 1,000 times before. You ever seen a protagonist who is one of the only good cops in a sea of corrupt ones? You ever seen a movie where the killer is targeting cops? You ever seen a movie where there's a copycat of a serial killer?
You ever seen a grown man naked?
I mean, yeah, we're not breaking new ground. My girlfriend Katie had the best observation, which I wholeheartedly agree with, and maybe she should be running this channel then, but she said it felt just like a really long episode of like Law and Order SVU, or any other police procedural for that matter. So I guess you could just call this movie Law and Order Special Jigsaw Unit. And one of the biggest things that lends itself to this feeling like a police procedural is that I knew who the killer was within the first 15 minutes. This movie is really, really predictable. Granted, at the end, I didn't know all the details of this reveal, but I knew the main points of it, and I had for about the entire movie. They telegraphed it really hard from the beginning, and that doesn't inherently make the reveal bad. It's just, you're playing it off like this is some big twist or reveal, and it's like, everyone saw that coming a mile away, man. And in the end, while I thought this was going to be a wholly new take on Saw, it really wasn't. There were a lot of things that felt a lot like the other movies, While this felt like they were trying to be influenced by movies by maybe David Fincher, they didn't really hit the mark there. They tried a lot of new things that didn't really work. They went back to some of their old ways that they think really work but are kind of getting stale, so this movie was a little disappointing in that regard. And you know how John Kramer's voice was so menacing on the Jigsaw tapes? His deep voice saying, "Do you want to play a game?" This voice is so bad that it made me laugh the first time I heard it. It just sounds like almost a child.
Hello, Detective Banks.
I don't know what the idea was behind it there, but it was not a good choice. What it all boils down to is this. Is this a great movie? No. Is this a good movie? Also no. But did I hate this movie? No again. This movie is entertaining. It's only an hour and a half. It keeps your interest, but it's not really breaking any new ground. And by the end of it, I was like, well, I mean, I don't feel any different after watching that. It's all just kind of a showcase of mediocrity. When all is said and done, what I will say is I appreciate them trying to do something new, but this movie just doesn't really fire on all cylinders. I'm going to give it a 6.3 out of 10. Spiral's just spinning its wheels. Part of me feels like that rating's a little high, but I still appreciate this movie more than some of the others like Jigsaw because this is at least trying to forge a new path, branch out and let the franchise go in new directions. Even if it doesn't work, at least they tried, so I'm going to give them credit for that.
Extra credit!
Alright guys, well if you like this review, hit like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. It helps the channel out, and check back for more reviews soon.
You wanna play games, motherfucker?
Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.